Have you ever felt like you're carrying an invisible weight? A guilt that just won't let go of your heart no matter how hard you try to move forward? Maybe it's a memory from the past, a mistake that still stings, or simply that feeling that your spiritual life isn't as clean as it should be. What I'm going to show you today might be exactly the answer you've been looking for. There's a powerful prayer recorded in the Bible, capable of breaking chains, cleansing your soul, and restoring the peace that sin and failures steal from you. I'm talking about Psalm 51, the strongest prayer of repentance ever prayed by someone who knew deeply the weight of guilt and the need for God's forgiveness. David, the man after God's own heart, wrote these words in one of the darkest moments of his life, and they remain alive today because they carry a spiritual secret that transforms anyone who proclaims them with sincerity. And that's what you'll experience now. As you recite this psalm, you'll feel as if a deep cleansing has taken place within you, removing spiritual filth, erasing the marks of the past, and bringing a peace that can't be explained, only felt. Get ready, because what you're about to hear isn't just an ancient text, but a spiritual key capable of unlocking doors that were previously locked in your life. If you stay with me until the end, you'll discover how each word of Psalm 51 carries supernatural power to restore your life and bring back the joy of God's presence. Now, you understand how this message can transform your life, cleansing old guilt, bringing true peace and opening space for a new beginning with God. This impact you felt is proof that the Word has power, and sharing it is a way to spread the same liberation that came to you. So like the video and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving content that strengthens your faith and renews your journey. Write your message in the comments below, purified, and show that you have already taken the first step towards a restored life. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to admit when we've made a mistake? We often even try to hide what we've done from ourselves, as if ignoring it would solve the problem. But deep down, our conscience weighs on us and our hearts feel heavy. It's that feeling that won't leave us alone even when we try to distract ourselves. In Psalm 51, David doesn't beat around the bush. He acknowledges that he has sinned and that he needs God's forgiveness. This is the first step to any spiritual transformation, acknowledging that there's an open wound. And do you know what's most powerful about this? It's that no matter the size of the mistake or the depth of the guilt, God remains willing to forgive, as long as it's sincere. Have you ever had a moment when you knew you needed to truly apologize, not just lip service? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Forgiveness, because this simple gesture can already be the beginning of your liberation. When you read this psalm, you realize that David doesn't place blame on anyone, doesn't try to justify, doesn't make excuses. He admits it. I have sinned against you. This is very powerful because it shows that transformation doesn't begin when we point the finger at others, but when we look within and recognize where we went wrong. Is it hard? Yes, because it touches our pride, but it's also liberating. Many people carry hidden guilt, things they did years ago and never had the courage to bring before God. And because of this, they live trapped, unable to experience the lightness of true peace. Acknowledging that you've made a mistake isn't a sign of weakness. It's an act of courage. It's admitting that you no longer want to carry that weight. I know you've probably heard many times that you need to surrender everything to God, but here we're not talking about a cliché or a religious ritual. We're talking about opening your heart so sincerely that you can speak to God without masks, just as you truly are. This is where David's prayer comes to life, because he knew the only way out was to be transparent before God. And perhaps this is the biggest problem many people face. They think they need to appear strong, even before the Lord, when in reality, what he expects is a broken heart, willing to acknowledge its own shortcomings. Now, think about it. How many times have you tried to change something on your own and failed? How many times have you promised yourself you wouldn't repeat a mistake, only to end up back where you left off? This happens because alone you don't have enough strength. This is what David understood. Even though he was king, even though he had power, he recognized that without God's mercy, he was nothing more than a frail man. This shows that no matter your position, your titles, or even how much you know about the Bible, we all need this forgiveness and restoration. Recognition is the foundation for God to complete his work. And I want you to think about something right now. What's weighing you down today? It could be a mistake no one knows about, an attitude you're not proud of, or even a thought that keeps coming back. These things don't disappear on their own. They need to be brought to light before God. And Psalm 51 is precisely that light. When you say these words, you're acknowledging that you can't go on with your soul burdened and that you need to be purified. It's like lifting a weight off your shoulders that you've carried for a long time. And believe me, once you do, the feeling of lightness is so real it's hard to explain. Many people think that asking for forgiveness is a sign of defeat, but it's quite the opposite. True forgiveness is the greatest victory you can have over yourself. It's as if you were saying, I won't let my mistake define me, I'll let God's forgiveness write a new story. And that decision begins precisely at that point, recognizing that you need this forgiveness. And it's not just any forgiveness. It's a forgiveness that cleanses, erases, and makes room for a new life. It's as if God were saying, I no longer see what you did, I see who you can become. This is so impactful that it completely changes the way you look at life. You might be thinking, but will it work for me? Can God really forgive me after all this? The answer is simple, yes. The proof is in David himself. He had made some very serious mistakes, and yet, when he honestly acknowledged them, God restored him. This shows that there is no mistake too great for God's grace. The only mistake that cannot be forgiven is the one you don't acknowledge and surrender. That's why this first step of acknowledging is so powerful. It's like opening the door for God to come in and do a complete cleansing. And do you know why this is so important? Because when you acknowledge your need, you place yourself in the only place where God can act, humility. Pride closes the door, but humility opens the door for God to act. It's like when you go to the doctor. If you don't admit you're sick, you'll never accept treatment. It's the same with God. Acknowledgement is the diagnosis that paves the way for healing. Without it, nothing changes. But with it, everything can change. And that's precisely why this first topic is so powerful. It shows that the path to peace doesn't begin with great achievements or promises of wealth, but with a simple act of courage, admitting that you need forgiveness. It seems small, but it's the turning point. It's like the key that unlocks all the other doors in your spiritual life. And from the moment you take this step, you begin a journey of transformation that goes far beyond what you imagine. Now, where this recognition can take you, and how it opens space for something even greater, is exactly what you will understand in the next step of this journey. Have you ever noticed how, after acknowledging a mistake, your heart seems to cry out for immediate relief? It's as if a need arises within you to cleanse, to remove the filth that has accumulated in your soul. In Psalm 51, David didn't stop at simply acknowledging his sin. He went further, confessing openly and sincerely, unafraid to expose himself before God. And here's a detail many people forget. Confession isn't for God to discover what you've done, because He already knows everything. Confession is for you to free yourself from what's holding you back. When you put into words what was hidden, something changes within you. The weight lifts, your mind rests, and your soul breathes again. Many people confuse confession with weakness, but the truth is that only strong people can expose themselves honestly. Most try to hide, disguise, make excuses, or even shift the blame onto others. But those who truly want to be transformed understand that they must take responsibility. That's what David did. I have sinned against you. He didn't try to shift the blame. He didn't seek justification. And this is a practical lesson for your life today. As long as you keep pointing fingers or trying to hide, nothing changes. The first step got you here, but the second step is to open your mouth and declare what's in your heart. Think about a situation in your life that you've never spoken about clearly in prayer. It might be something you've always hidden because you were ashamed, or even because you thought God wouldn't forgive you. Now imagine how liberating it would be to bring it before Him without a reservation, as David did. Confession is like emptying a cup full of dirt so it can be washed and used again. Have you ever stopped to consider that perhaps the peace you so desperately seek hasn't arrived yet because you've never truly verbalized what's hidden inside? I know it's not easy, and that's precisely why confession is so powerful. It requires humility, courage, and breaking pride. But it's at this point that you begin to experience the true power of forgiveness. When you speak openly to God, it's as if the invisible shackles that held you back simply break, and the feeling that follows is freedom. Freedom to begin again, freedom to breathe without fear, freedom to look forward without feeling trapped by what's left behind. And I want you to do something right now. Write the word in the comments, freed. This simple act is a way for you to publicly acknowledge your determination to make room for God to cleanse your life. It's a symbolic step, but a very important one, because it transforms your confession into a movement of faith. By commenting, you're not just interacting, you're declaring that you believe in the power of forgiveness and that you no longer want to carry the burden of the past. The most impressive thing is that when you start practicing this practice, you realize that confession isn't a one-time act, but a lifestyle. It's not about remaining trapped in error, but about keeping your heart clean and light before God. It's like taking a shower every day. You don't wait for dirt to accumulate and then deal with it. You constantly keep yourself clean. And spiritually, it's the same. Confession opens up space for you to live more lightly, without having to carry unnecessary burdens. And here comes something that will shake you even more. Sincere confession not only cleanses the soul, but also opens the door to an even deeper transformation, one that goes beyond acknowledging and talking about the mistake. It's about being renewed from the inside out, something that changes not only your conscience but also your heart. Do you see how there's a difference between simply asking for forgiveness and truly feeling cleansed? Acknowledging and confessing are powerful steps, but David understood he needed something even deeper. He asked to be cleansed. In Psalm 51 he declares, "Purge me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow." This isn't just a pretty phrase. It's a real cry from someone who knew it wasn't enough to simply talk about the mistake. It was necessary to be transformed from the inside out. Here's an important point. You can't purify yourself alone, no matter how hard you try. Only God can do this true cleansing, the kind that erases even the invisible marks left on the soul. Maybe you've been there, that moment when you even asked for forgiveness, but you still felt dirty, as if the mistake still haunted you. It's because confession opens the heart, but purification is what truly heals. It's like when someone only treats the symptom and forgets the root of the disease. It's no use. God doesn't just work on the surface, He goes deep where no one else can touch. And when He purifies, He leaves no trace. The weight lifts, the guilt loses its strength, and the heart begins to feel a peace that seemed impossible. Now think about it. How many people live trying to erase their mistakes with good deeds? They do everything to make up for it, help others, make sacrifices, but still have a guilty conscience. This happens because no human effort can cleanse what only God can cleanse. You may even try to convince yourself that everything is fine, but deep down, you know something is still wrong. That's why purification is so essential. It's the moment when you surrender to God not only the mistake, but also its consequences, allowing Him to wash away your history and give you a true new beginning. This cleansing isn't just spiritual, it also affects the mind and body. People who live trapped in guilt suffer from anxiety, insomnia, and a lack of peace. But when they surrender this to God, their hearts calm, their minds rest, and even their bodies feel relief. It's a complete process, because God doesn't just restore a part of you, He restores you whole. And that's why this step is so powerful. It's not just about erasing a mistake, but about reclaiming life, joy, and the ability to move forward without being trapped in the past. I want to ask you something. Write the word in the comments, cleaned. This gesture is simple, but it functions as a prophetic act, declaring that you believe God can cleanse your life, no matter what has happened. By commenting, you are not just interacting. You are putting into practice David's same cry. You are saying, "Lord, cleanse me too." And the most incredible thing is that purification doesn't end with you feeling clean. It makes room for something even greater, because when God removes the weight and dirt, He doesn't leave a void. He puts something new inside you, something that changes the way you think, act, and even feel. It's precisely this next step that will show you how true transformation happens. Have you ever realized that cleansing the soul isn't enough? Because if there's no change within, we end up returning to the same mistakes. That's why in Psalm 51, David asks for something even more profound. "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." He understood that it wasn't enough to simply be forgiven. He needed to be completely transformed, This is where the journey shifts gears, because it's no longer about erasing the past, it's about building a different future. It's like changing the roots of a tree. If the root is new and healthy, everything that grows from it will be too. And when the heart is renewed, attitudes, thoughts, and even words begin to reflect this change. Think about how many times you've tried to change on your own, promised yourself you wouldn't fall into the same trap again, and a short time later there you are repeating it all over again. This happens because the heart remains the same, just more burdened with frustration. What David asked for was a new heart, and that's something only God can give. It's as if he replaced that rusty engine that can't handle it anymore and put a new one inside you, ready to start over. This is the secret to true transformation. It's not about patching things up, but about recreating. And here comes something that many people forget. It's not enough to simply receive a new heart. You also need to have a firm, stable spirit that won't let circumstances sway you. Because a pure heart will give you new desires, but an unshakable spirit will give you the strength to remain steadfast even when temptations and difficulties arise. It's the difference between someone who starts out excited and quickly gives up, and someone who keeps going even through difficult times. This steadfastness is built when you allow God to be the foundation of your life, not just an emergency resource. Perhaps you're wondering, but how do I know this new heart is truly within me? The answer lies in the little things, when different thoughts begin to emerge, when attitudes that were once automatic no longer seem so natural, when you feel within yourself a resistance against what once dominated you. It's not immediate perfection, it's continuous transformation. And this doesn't come from human effort. It comes from God working deep within you. That's why David's request is so timely. He knew it wasn't enough to simply ask for forgiveness and be cleansed, because the risk of falling again was great. He needed a renewed heart, capable of desiring the right things, and a firm spirit to remain standing. This is so practical for your life today, because it means you don't have to be stuck in that endless cycle of mistakes, guilt, and trying to start over. God offers you something entirely new, a heart that loves what is good, and a spirit that doesn't buckle under pressure. Now I want you to do something simple that will mark this moment. Write the word in the comments renewed. It's a way of declaring that you believe God can replace the old within you and bring in something new, pure and solid. It's a sign that you're not just listening, but participating in this process of transformation. And that's precisely where the journey gets even more interesting, because when you receive this pure heart and this unshakable spirit, something begins to happen. The joy that previously seemed lost returns with a vengeance. But the way this joy is restored will surprise you in ways you may never have imagined. You know that feeling of emptiness that takes over when you're far from God. It's as if everything loses its color. Even the things that once brought you pleasure no longer have any grace. In Psalm 51, David prays, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and sustain me with a willing spirit." He knew that sin doesn't just steal peace, it also steals joy. And this joy isn't just any fleeting happiness. It's the joy of being at peace with God, of living with a clear conscience, of knowing you're on the right path. That's why David's prayer is so profound, because it shows that forgiveness isn't just about erasing the mistake, but about restoring the joy that was lost. How many people do you know who live tired, without energy, without a sparkle in their eyes? Often it's not a lack of money, health, or achievements. It's a lack of spiritual joy. When the soul is heavy, nothing satisfies. You may even have external achievements, but inside, your heart remains empty. This is what David was feeling. He had everything a man could desire: power, wealth, recognition. But none of these replaced the joy that comes only from God. And here's the truth you may need to hear. The greatest happiness you can experience is not in the things the world can offer, but in being cleansed and restored before God. When this joy is restored, life's perspective changes. Small things make sense again, like waking up in the morning with peace in your heart, or being able to sleep soundly at night without being tormented by guilt. And this is no exaggeration, it's reality. People who experience this restoration speak of an almost indescribable feeling of lightness, as if a weight has been lifted from within them. It is at this point that the heart opens to truly living, not just surviving. And notice how David completes the request: "Uphold me with a willing spirit." This shows that it's not just about having joy, but about maintaining that joy steadfast. It's as if he's saying, Lord, I don't just want to feel momentary relief. I want to remain steadfast. I want to have a spirit that doesn't lose heart. And this is an essential key, because many people even experience a moment of peace after asking for forgiveness, but soon fall back, and the joy disappears. What sustains this joy is a willing spirit, a daily decision to remain connected to God. Perhaps you feel like your joy has been stolen, that you no longer find pleasure in the things that once filled your heart. But the good news is that this joy can be restored. And it's not just any joy, it's the joy of salvation, the kind that no one can take away from you. When God restores this joy, the world can crumble around you, and yet you can still smile, because within you there is something that doesn't depend on circumstances. And now I want you to do something that will reinforce this decision within yourself. Write the word in the comments, happiness. This simple gesture is an act of faith, as if you were declaring that you believe in the restoration of God's joy in your life. It's a sign that you don't want to live in emptiness, but rather want to experience this peace that truly fills. And it's precisely from this point that your life begins to overflow. Because when the joy of salvation is restored, you can't keep it to yourself. Your own transformation begins to impact those around you, and that's when something even more powerful happens. Have you ever noticed how impossible it is to keep something that truly transformed your life to yourself? When you feel relief after recognizing, confessing, being purified, and having your joy restored, the natural urge is to share it. It's like someone who was sick, found healing, and now wants to tell everyone. Psalm 51, David declares, Then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will be converted to you. He understands that his transformation couldn't be limited to his personal life. It needed to reach others. And here's a detail you may never have stopped to consider. Testimony isn't born from theory. It's born from experience. You don't convince anyone just with pretty words, but with a life that has been truly transformed. You may often feel like you're in no position to speak about God to someone, perhaps because you think you don't know enough about the Bible, or that you don't have the same eloquence as a preacher. But remember, David wasn't promising to share a sermon. He was promising to share his own experience of forgiveness and restoration. And this is something anyone can do. The power of testimony lies precisely in sincerity, in the I was fallen, but I was raised, in the I made mistakes, but I was forgiven. This truth touches people's hearts in a way that no rational argument can. And here's something very practical. When you share your change, you inspire others to believe it's possible too. How many times have you heard someone share how they overcame a struggle, and it gave you the strength to keep going? That's exactly what happens when you open your mouth to share what God has done for you. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have a rehearsed script. Just speak truthfully, because truth carries a weight that reaches directly into the hearts of those who listen. And don't think that witnessing is just preaching in public or to large crowds. Sometimes it's in a simple conversation with a friend, in a hug given to someone who is suffering, in a word of hope for someone who no longer believes in anything. Testimony is life. It's the reflection of what you've already experienced. When your soul is transformed, people notice, even without you saying a word. It's that change in your outlook, in your way of acting, in the way you deal with problems. Those who knew you before and see you now realize that something has happened, and this arouses curiosity. And I want to make a side note here. Maybe you think your story doesn't have much impact, that your transformation isn't that big. But let me tell you something important. There's no such thing as a small testimony when what's transformed is the soul. Every time you speak of what God has done, you're planting a seed in someone, and you never know how big a harvest that seed can yield. Sometimes a simple word from you can be what saves someone from giving up on life. Now, I want you to do something that will solidify this truth within yourself. Write the word in the comments, testimony. This isn't just engagement. It's a way of declaring that you understand that your life can also be used to transform others. Even if you're still in process, even if you still struggle, the simple fact that you've experienced forgiveness is already a powerful testimony. And it's precisely at this point that something even more profound happens, because when you begin to live as a testimony, it's not just what you do that catches God's attention, but mainly what's in your heart. And there's a detail in Psalm 51 that reveals the true sacrifice God accepts. Have you ever noticed how many people think they can buy God's favor with external sacrifices? They make promises, rituals, and visible gestures as if all of this were enough to impress the Creator. But in Psalm 51, David makes it clear that what truly touches God's heart is not these rituals, but a broken heart. He declares, "The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." This changes everything, because it shows us that what the Lord expects is not an act, but sincerity. And sincerity, let's face it, is rare. It's easy to put on a mask, but it's difficult to truly open your heart. Think about how many times you've been tempted to show a strength even when you were broken inside. Perhaps even before God you tried to appear strong, as if He didn't notice the pain that lay hidden within. The truth is, God isn't impressed by a strong appearance. He draws near when you acknowledge your fragility. It's when you bend, when you admit, "I can't do it alone, I depend on you," that He pours out grace. Brokenness isn't cheap humiliation. It's where God acts with power. Many people shy away from this idea because they think brokenness is a sign of defeat. But in practice, it's exactly the opposite. A broken heart is fertile ground for God to do new things. While pride hardens and closes doors, humility makes room for the Holy Spirit to transform from the inside out. It's like hard ground that receives no rain. No matter how much it rains, the water runs off and nothing happens. But when the ground is broken and plowed, the rain penetrates and gives birth to something new. This is how the heart is before God. And here's a very important detail. God does not despise a broken heart. This means that no matter how big the mistake or how much time has passed, if you come before Him with sincerity, He always listens. Always. There is no rejection for those who present themselves with truth. And this should fill us with hope because it shows that restoration does not depend on our perfection, but on our willingness to be honest before God. Now, I want you to do something that will cement this message within you. Write the word in the comments heart. It's a simple yet powerful way to declare that you understand that God isn't waiting for theatrical gestures, but rather a sincere heart, willing to be molded. This is, in itself, an act of brokenness, and it is precisely when this heart is placed before God that something even greater begins to happen. Because restoration is never restricted to the individual. It expands, reaching out to the surrounding areas, and paves the way for a collective transformation that goes far beyond you. Have you ever noticed that when God restores someone, this change doesn't just stay in their personal lives, but overflows into everything around them? At the end of Psalm 51, David makes a request that goes beyond himself. "Do good to Zion according to your good pleasure. Build up the walls of Jerusalem." Look at this profound detail. He began the psalm asking for forgiveness for himself, but ends interceding for the people. This shows that when the soul is truly transformed, you no longer think only of yourself. Personal restoration makes room for collective restoration, because what God does within you always has an impact outside of you. You may never have stopped to think about it, but your restored life could be the key to restoring your family, your friends, and even places that seemed hopeless. It's like when someone in a house changes radically, and little by little, everyone begins to feel the effect of that change, the forgiveness and peace you receive from God are not just to ease your conscience, but to enable you to be a channel of transformation. This is what happened to David. Upon experiencing forgiveness, he realized that it wasn't enough to stop there. He needed to ask God to restore all the people. And this is very relevant today because today we live in a broken world, full of fallen walls, destroyed families, broken relationships, and directionless lives. But the promise of Psalm 51 is that God not only heals individuals, He rebuilds walls. He restores entire communities. He restores hope where there seemed to be no way out. When you experience this transformation, it's impossible not to want others to experience it too. Restoration is no longer just about you. It becomes about everyone who can be reached by what God is doing through you. Now you've felt how this content has brought clarity, peace, and practical direction to your spiritual life, showing that Psalm 51 isn't just an ancient prayer, but a true key to transformation. This same peace that has reached you can also reach others, And the simplest way to spread this is by liking and subscribing to the channel, so more lives can be touched like yours was today. And there's more. Leave a comment with your message. Transformation. Because this is the sign that you are determined to live this change every day. What comes next will move you even further. Because if today you understood the power of repentance and restoration, in the next video you'll discover an even deeper principle that can unlock areas of your life that have been blocked for a long time. So get ready, because what's about to be revealed could take your journey to a level you've never experienced before.